Coming up on Network Africa. United Nations World Food Programme announces suspension of all emergency food and nutrition aid in northeast Nigeria at the end of July. Anger boils in Togo after new constitution allows President Faure Singbe's shift into a more powerful Prime Minister role, dodging term limits. Plus, the Central African Republic publishes provincial voter lists ahead of general elections in December. Hello and welcome to the program today. I'm Layo Olainde. We begin in Nigeria, where the United Nations World Food Programme, WFP, says it would be forced to suspend all emergency food and nutrition aid for 1.3 million people in the northeast of the country at the end of July. According to WFP, this is due to critical funding shortfalls, which come at a time of escalating violence and record levels of hunger, claiming food and nutrition stocks have been completely exhausted. The organization says that its last supplies were left warehouses in early July, and life-saving assistance will end after the current round of distributions are completed. This shortfall is expected to leave millions of vulnerable people in increasingly severe hunger. Children will be among the worst affected if the vital aid ends. More than 150 WFP-supported nutrition clinics in Borno and Yobe states of the country will be closing, and this will be ending potentially life-saving treatment for more than 300,000 children under the age of 2 and placing them at increased risk of wasting.
This is coming at a very difficult time because we are at the middle of the lean season, where the situation of food insecurity is the worst, and we have run out of funding to sustain the operations.
Well, the European Union says it has committed 1.5 million euros to support victims of the Yellow-Water conflict in Benue State and other internally displaced persons in Nigeria in the last 1 year. This is in addition to ongoing efforts to support Nigeria in tackling a worsening nutrition crisis in the northwest and northeast regions. The EU ambassador to Nigeria, Mr. Hotie disclosed this during a high-level meeting with the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, Professor Nentawe Yilwada, in Abuja, where both parties agreed to a joint task force to respond to the nutrition emergency, streamline supply chains, and also to establish a coordinated response with humanitarian partners. Our correspondent, Benny Ark, reports.
The Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction is holding a strategic meeting to strengthen collaboration with the European Union on aid and poverty reduction in the country. The EU delegation, led by the ambassador, Gautier Mignor, joins the Ministers of Humanitarian Affairs and other partners at the meeting. The focus of the meeting is to align on key interventions, especially in conflict and food insecure areas.
The European Union has found the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs as a good ally that they can work together to see much impact is delivered to Nigerians who find themselves in civil strife, in areas of unrest that has impacted negatively to their nutrition, to their means of livelihood so much.
The EU ambassador, Mr. Gautier Mignor, expresses concern over the escalating nutrition emergency in the northwest and northeast, emphasizing the need for urgent response.
Mobilization is necessary in Nigeria to raise more domestic support from all sources, federal government, state governments, private sector, to address the needs and prevent a shortage a breakup in the supply of the therapeutic food, which is required by children in particular on the ground. These hundreds of thousands of children which might die if we don't treat them with these therapeutic food, because they are severely acute malnourished, which is the category where, especially if you have complications like measles or malaria, this situation causes death.
The Humanitarian Affairs Minister, Professor Nentawe Yetwade, appreciates the EU support and reaffirms commitment to partner-driven results.
We are hopeful that the commitment of the European Union and other donor partners and any call from the federal government will ensure that we revive and give life to more kids, and we work together, hand in glove, to ensure that we rescue every soul that needs to be saved in Nigeria.
The meeting ends with the resolve to act swiftly, stay transparent, and coordinate strongly to reach vulnerable communities. Benny Ark, Channels Television News.
Well, anger is boiling over in Togo's capital, Lomé, after a new constitution. The law allows President Faure Singbe shift into a more powerful prime minister role, and this will make him be able to dodge term limits and also extending his family's nearly 6-decade rule. At least 5 protesters have died in recent weeks during clashes with security forces. The outrage is being led by young Togolese bloggers, artists and activists who are calling for an end to the Asingbe family regime that has been in power for decades. Well, protests are expected to continue on Friday. And ahead of the general elections scheduled for December 2025, the Central African Republic has taken a major step in its electoral process with the publication of the provisional voter lists, and this is just 5 months into the polls. The National Elections Authority posted the lists at voting centers in Bangui and several provincial towns. The voter registration process, which began in December 2024, faced significant delays due to technical, financial and security challenges. While some citizens have welcomed the move as progress towards credible elections, others have voiced concerns over irregularities, including missing names and duplicate entries. However, the Elections Authority has opened a complaints window, allowing voters to review and contest the list. In the meantime, hundreds of people have rallied in the capital in support of the president, Faustin Assange Touadera, urging him to run for a 3rd term in office. Well, let's go back to our leading story. The WFP says it urgently requires $130 million to prevent the imminent pipeline break and also to sustain food and nutrition operations in northeast Nigeria through the end of 2025. Well, let's now listen to more details on the funding shortfall in the country from the WFP Regional Director for West and Central Africa, Margot van der Velden.
Due to the severe funding cuts that the World Food Programme is facing, we have exhausted our food and nutrition resources. And in the beginning of August, we will have to face the heartbreaking reality of having to suspend our operations for the populations in northeast Nigeria. And so our teams will have to tell the populations that they no longer will receive aid, not because there is no need, but there is no resources for that assistance. So over 1.3 million people will lose life-saving food assistance and nutrition support. 300,000 children will be at risk of severe malnutrition, and more than 700,000 displaced populations will be left with no means of survival. Now, the sad part is also that this crisis is not just in Nigeria. Across West and Central Africa, WFP is facing critical funding shortfalls that are forcing us to reduce and suspend in many operations in some of the most fragile contexts in the continent. WFP aid in the region has dropped by 60% compared to last year. And now we are reaching only 5 million people, with Mali and Niger suffering cuts of over 80% in emergency support. In the region, we have about 10 million people displaced, forcefully displaced, and a large percentage is in the northeast of Nigeria. We have about 2 million people that are displaced or that are in areas where they can hardly move away from, and so that is the bulk of the displaced populations are obviously in Nigeria, in the northeast Nigeria, as well as in Chad, where we receive about 1.7 million refugees from Sudan. We see an uptake of the attacks of the armed groups in the northeast of Nigeria. That we have had a period of a little bit more calm, but we have seen from the beginning of the year, we've seen an uptick of insecurity and violent attacks in the region. We've also, of course, been faced in Nigeria with this unfortunate high-level inflation of food prices. And hence there is a larger proportion of populations that have difficulties meeting their basic needs based on the high costs of a minimum food basket, and that is also aggravating. And then obviously we had also last year, as you know, the massive flooding in the northeast, which has also led to not only loss of harvests at that time, but also still is impacting the ability of people to plant and to cultivate this year. So it's a mixture of factors that I think come now together and have reached this point of where we have this increased needs exposed, and at the same time we're seeing a massively reduced funding forecast coming our way.
In Sudan, cholera is hitting the country hard as the Ministry of Health reports over 91,000 cholera cases, including 2,302 deaths across 116 localities in 17 states. And this is since the outbreak of the disease last July. According to the ministry, localities in North Darfur State recorded the highest number of infections with 519 cases during the week, while the Beli locality in South Darfur State reported the highest number of deaths. Recently, the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs warned that the humanitarian crisis in Sudan is worsening amid the deadly cholera outbreak, floods, and mass returns of underserved areas. Welcome back to the program. We continue with our leading story for today. The World Food Programme suspending all emergency food and nutrition aid to northeast Nigeria. Well, joining us now for more discussions on this is human rights activist Olatunji Lanre Baruwa. He joins us from our Abuja studios. Thank you for your time on Network Africa.
Thank you for having me.
Well, given the World Food Programme's announcement now to suspend aid due to what they call, funding shortfalls, what should be the Nigerian government's responsibility, especially the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, in ensuring food security for the vulnerable populations in the northern region of the country?
The immediate response of the Nigerian government, especially through the Ministry of Humanitarian Development and Humanitarian Affairs, should be that of an emergency. Emergency in the sense that this gap is going to be severely felt. This gap is so gapping because there's been, our government have taken it for granted over the last couple of years. In fact, for more than a decade, we have had to rely on the World Food Programme, on the United Nations, on a whole lot of international development partners to fill that gap, to help save our children from dying, to help save people who have been displaced from starving, to help, cushion the effect of the tragedy that has ravaged the Northeast through the insurgency that we have witnessed over the last couple of years. And this is going to be very severe. And this is a point that the federal government needs to declare a state of emergency in humanitarian intervention in that region. Because the moment you turn off that tap, that is going to be huge. You are going to have issues with wash facilities. You are going to have issues with water. You are going to have issues with maternal aid to nursing parents, to pregnant women. We are going to have challenges with education. We are going to have challenges with, basic emergency, supplies and support for people who are, suffering from the insurgency that is still ongoing, that is even ramping up again all of a sudden in the region. This is huge, and it's the kind of response we need now is that of a swift one, and the government needs to step in and look at how to declare an humanitarian emergency so that we can rally around the whole country, rally around the organized private sector, and see how we can cushion the effect and block this gap.
And in cushioning the effects, we're seeing this funding shortfall as an effect from, the West cutting off its international aid. Now, beyond international donors, what would it take realistically for Africa and African governments to really break free from reliance on foreign aid to become self-reliant?
That is a conference, is a discussion that we have to, put across. It's a huge one. That is a different conversation entirely. To reduce reliance on aid is going to be, it's a complicated one. When you look at the international system, the international order as we have it today, it is not built for the independence or, for the prosperity of third world countries, developing countries, countries in the global south. It is built to sustain subservience. And that is why you have the international financial organizations. The international system is not built to make us prosper. And for us to break free from that, you have to look at models that have worked. You have to look at how did China move 500 million people in a decade or 2 decades out of poverty. We have to look at how countries like Malaysia, Singapore, how they broke free from the dominance of the West. It's not that they are totally free, but countries like Singapore and Malaysia are not dependent on aid. They are not dependent on intervention of the UK aid or of the US aid or the GCA to support their educational system, for humanitarian intervention. They can fix those things themselves. So it's a different conversation, but it will require responsive and responsible leadership in Africa. It will require transparent governance. It will require accountability from our leaders. It will require, honesty from our leaders. People have to come into office. Public service is not where you want to enrich yourself. It's only in Nigeria and some other African countries where politicians are richer than the organized private sector. People who are in politics are richer than businessmen. People who are in politics are richer than people who have been doing business for 3 decades, 4 decades. And it should be the other way around. If you look at Western economies and society, politicians go to jail for seeking funds from private sector, for collecting money from, they are funded by the private sector. We say the policies in the West are written by the organized private sector in the West. But here in Nigeria, it's the other way around, and it's an anomaly that we need to correct. But the society in itself, there's a whole lot of problems. That's why I said to reduce reliance on foreign aid, that conversation is a complicated one, is a big one. It's a wide conversation that we need to look at across different sectors of the Nigerian economy. We have to look at the leadership. We have to look at the followership. We have to look at our citizenship. We have to look at, even the state of the Nigerian, how committed are we to the project called Nigeria? We have to look at Africa. How committed are Africans? Do we feel that we are stakeholders in the project of our respective countries? Do Africans feel that sense of nationalism in their respective countries when your country cannot provide the basic amenities, the basic needs for you within your country? When you don't have access to water, you don't have access to good roads, your government cannot even secure you. Look at the Sahelian region. Look at northeast Nigeria. Look at Chad, Mali, Mauritania. The crises are all over the place. Look at Somalia. Look at Sudan. Look at Ethiopia, Eritrea, the Horn of Africa. Everywhere is engulfed in crisis. I don't think most Africans will feel like, they can beat their chest, that they will die for their respective countries. But there are a whole lot of people who are also patriotic, who are putting their lives on the line every day. So that conversation is deeper than something we touch on the surface. It's a call on the people to demand more from their leadership. It is a call also on leaders to actually honor their social contract.
All right, then, a lot to unpack there, but to leave it at that. Thank you so much, human rights activist Olatunji Lanre-Barua. Thank you for speaking to us on the program.
Thank you for always having me.
Ethiopia's government is denying President Donald Trump's claim about the United States funding its country's new mega dam on the River Nile, saying it is false and destructive. The dam, which is officially known as the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, GERD, believed to be Africa's biggest hydroelectric plant project and a major source of pride for Ethiopians. Last week, U.S. President Trump said the controversial dam was built with United States money, largely. Well, in response, Deputy Director of the GERD Coordination Office, Tamir Fichter, dismissed President Trump's remarks, saying the dam was built without any foreign aid. The Ethiopian authorities say that the dam was funded by its government along with contributions from the Ethiopian people. As the global momentum for clean energy gains pace, Managing Director of MENA, Vuslat Bayoglu, has cautioned against Africa adopting energy transition timelines set by more developed nations. Speaking at the Coal and Energy Transition Day in Johannesburg, South Africa, Bayoglu stressed that the continent requires a transition roadmap grounded in its own realities, highlighting the urgent need to address developmental priorities and widespread gaps in energy access. Our South Africa correspondent, Innocent Samosa, has more.
Stakeholders from government, industry, finance and civil society have converged in Johannesburg, South Africa for the Coal and Energy Transition Day. Those behind this gathering says it provides a platform to engage on critical issues shaping Africa's energy future, including energy transition policy, the evolving role of coal, and the socio-economic impact of a just transition.
A conversation is becoming more mature. It started off as an either-or. We must kill coal mining and coal-fired power stations and only have renewables. That was never grounded in reality. We need more energy. We need sustainable energy. We need coal-fired power stations for at least the next 20 years. On top of that, let's do renewables. So any transition that happens over generations is inherently more fair. That's, I think, what most people in the country now accept. It's not an overnight shut off the one and start the other one.
Managing Director of MENA, Vuslat Bayoglu, says Africa must not blindly adopt timelines set by developed nations.
South Africa especially, because we have got like more than actually 50,000 megawatt capacity, but we're using only 30,000 megawatt at the moment because of all these challenges. South Africa needs to have clean coal technologies when we are burning coal, so that we can extend the life of coal in South Africa. Otherwise, the whole world is against us while they're burning coal. I mean, if you look at China, India, Southeast Asian countries, they're all burning coal and they're using the latest technologies. Some of them are using carbon capture and utilization technologies. But at the end of the day, for South Africa to extend the life of coal-fired power stations, we definitely need to invest in clean coal technologies.
Some delegates says that just energy must protect workers and communities dependent on the coal industry.
Energy transition is very important, but it has to be realistic because renewable cannot be provide base load, so you still need a coal. Also in Africa is very important about job creation. So the coal mining is produce lots of jobs.
While sitting in and listening to delegates, it's clear that the path forward must balance urgent climate goals with the realities of economic development, energy access and social justice, especially across the global south. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Samosa, Channels Television News.
The Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NIDCOM, has condemned the latest killing of Nigerians in South Africa by unknown gunmen, describing it as intolerable, with a call to fish out the culprits. The chairman CEO of the commission, Honorable Abike Dabiri-Erewa, says the latest unprovoked killing is condemnable and barbaric, calling on South African authorities to thoroughly investigate the matter and expose the perpetrators. Recalling that the early warning mechanism put in place by both countries to prevent such killings is yet to be implemented by South Africa. The NIDCOM boss also condoles with the families of the deceased, assuring them that justice will be served. And finally, Ghana is ramping up efforts to tackle its plastic waste crisis with a nationwide push for recycling and sustainable waste management. It's been led by the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology. A $7 million initiative launched earlier this year is driving the country's transition to a circular economy. All residents in Accra have been sweeping their streets, gathering rubbish for recycling and helping to ease flooding to improve public health.
When rain fall like this, the pure water rubbers and pure water bottles all are always roaming, and the community always flood, and the gutters all always choke. But for now, the cleanup has changed everything. Now when you get to some places, the gutters are not always changed, are always choked. Everything is always neat.
Before, it creates a lot of problems in our community. The plastic waste they put wherever they get, maybe gutters, maybe in the taxi, maybe in trotro, they spread it a lot in the community. But for now, I think the initiative they brought is helping the community to keep the plastic bottles in one side.
As for the recycle, it brought plenty. Because first of all, the pure water rubbers, they don't use it for anything. They don't sell it. But nowadays, I will go and pick the pure water rubbers and go and sell it for some people. I also take money. I can buy food for myself. I can buy dress and everything for myself. So now the recycle has done well for us to get profit from the pure water rubbers.
And that's it on the program for today. Thank you for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.